Everybody, Wes here. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Now, I have to say that I'm a pretty big Resident Evil fan, so it's pretty surprising that I had never played Resident Evil 0. Now, one of the reasons could be that when it was originally released back in 2002, it was released for the GameCube, and I really wasn't a fan of the GameCube controller. But it was re-released later on for the Nintendo Wii using the Wii controls, which I was a fan of. But I never got around to playing it for whatever reason. Other games came out, you know how it is. So it's actually still in the shrink wrap. Now I was going to play this game actually last summer, but then I found out that Capcom was going to release an HD remaster of this game, just like they did with the remake of the first Resident Evil, which I played the hell out of. And I mean, I even got the Platinum Trophy on that game, so that took a lot of hours of playing. A lot of playthroughs. So I decided to hold off. I didn't even take this game out of the shrink wrap. I probably never will. There's no point now because now I have the HD remake using a PlayStation 3 controller, which is pretty much my favorite controller. Why mess with greatness, right? So when Capcom announced that they were going to do an HD remake for Resident Evil 0, it was a no-brainer that I was going to download it. So it's come out, I've downloaded it, I've played through it. Let's take a look and see how Resident Evil 0 holds up.
Resident Evil 0 begins when numerous leech-like monsters attach themselves to a roving train and then attack. While the STARS Bravo team is dispatched to investigate the mysterious murders of Raccoon City, their newest rookie, Rebecca Chambers, boards the now stalled train in search of a prisoner that has gone missing, Billy Cohen.
Billy Cohen, ex-lieutenant, 26 years old, court-martialed and sentenced to death July 22nd.
Immediately at first glance, Resident Evil 0 has fantastic visuals, with lifelike pre-rendered backgrounds very similar to the style of the Resident Evil remake. In fact, 0 offers numerous similarities to the remake, with a fresh coat of high-definition paint. Like the remake, 0's camera angles change as you explore the game's layout, using the old Resident Evil adage to try and scare the bejesus out of you. While there's no doubt that these angles were designed to use tank controls, the option to use more modern free-exploring controls is welcome here, even at the expense of some aggravating and annoying instances. While exploring the train, which of course is now infested with zombies, Rebecca runs into the prisoner she was looking for, Billy, who saves her bacon and convinces her that he's an okay dude. Resident Evil 0 then introduces a system in which pretty much every subsequent edition adopted afterwards, the partner system. In an attempt to change things up in the Resident Evil universe, Capcom employed the partner system to solve puzzles, share items, and battle foes. And it works really well here. While it can be a bit annoying at first, once you've grown accustomed to switching characters at the press of a button, it all becomes second nature. The train level sets your protagonist in certain situations where learning and using the partner system becomes mandatory. Trading items becomes a necessity, and choosing which items to carry adds a bit of strategy to the game. Long gone are the storage boxes from earlier editions, and a trading or swapping system is implemented here. Similar to Capcom's first survival horror game from 1989, Sweet Home, items can be left behind for new ones, seeing as each character only has 6 storage blocks in which items can be carried on your person, with certain weapons such as the shotgun using a minimum of 2 blocks. Unlike Sweet Home, which required you to trade an old item for a new one, 0 allows you to leave items in any room. That is until the room has too many items already stored in it. Another helpful difference from Sweet Home is that you can check your map for items left behind and their locations, as opposed to Capcom's classic horror game in which your memory serves as an item locator. Still, there will be several instances in which you'll have to backtrack to reclaim discarded items, but luckily they never disappear. While the train mainly serves as a training ground to become accustomed to the nuances of the game, the adventure really picks things up once you come across, surprise surprise, an abandoned mansion. Let's face it, what's Resident Evil without a mansion? With many similarities to the Spencer Mansion from the first game, Zero's abandoned house offers dark and dingy, dust-covered rooms with slimy creatures lurking behind corners, and a deluge of items and puzzles typical of Resident Evil. If you're a fan of the series, you know what to expect and should not be disappointed. Now, while I played the entire game with the updated controls, I have no doubt that the original tank controls would have been more efficient at certain points. Take for instance the many times the camera angle will change, placing you in nearly the opposite direction. With tank controls, I'm more inclined to just keep pressing up and thus moving forward. Instead, I found myself stopping often as soon as the angle changed, only to have the camera instantly revert back to the previous angle. I don't know if this was from the minute snapback of the joystick or a flaw within the game, but what I do know for sure is that it is extremely annoying. Other points in the game, such as when pushing objects, which is a staple within the Resident Evil series, can be absolutely aggravating. While trying to solve this oversized chess puzzle, moving the incorrect piece will uncover a vent, which spews noxious gas, which you'll choke on within seconds. Even though the game is generous here, leaving you plenty of time to push the piece back over the vent, I ran into this. This is another instance in which I feel the original controls would have benefited over the updated ones. While I guess these bothersome quirks could be considered minor annoyances, the inability to pick up items when standing right over them is probably the biggest pain in the ass for me. Just look at this instance in trying to pick up an item that I'm clearly standing over.
If I had an ink ribbon, I could save my game.
You're just trying to piss me off, aren't you? Oh, and checking for items strewn about is affected in a similar way. If you're not lined up just right, there's a good chance you're going to miss certain items and/or clues. Now, since I never played the original, I don't know if it was already like this, but god damn it, it should have been fixed regardless. Naturally, Resident Evil 0 is going to provide us with some disgusting monsters and mutants. Zombies, of course, those nasty green hunters from the original, muty frogs, and even rabid chimps.
Evil, evil monkey! Evil, evil monkey!
And while the game does offer a diverse cast of ugly baddies, I felt the game would have benefited from some more boss fights. The game actually offers a fairly decent narrative, with Resident Evil's typical cheesy one-liners and far-out characters. This should be of no surprise to veterans of the series. And thankfully, in the world of Resident Evil, people keep detailed diaries offering important clues, which I guess you could compare to today's use of social media, where we know what our friends are having for every meal, or even how successful their latest bowel movement was. Hey, if it's not written down, it never happened, right? Just like the remake, Resident Evil 0 is a fairly short game which can be finished within a matter of hours on your first run. But also like the remake, there's a ton of replay value, which is where I actually have the most fun in playing games from this excellent series. I predict that I'll soon be adding another platinum trophy to my trophy case. After defeating the game, you're rewarded with several extras, such as the highly addictive Leech Hunter minigame, in which you're placed in the mansion in search of 100 Leech Charms, 50 for each Rebecca and Billy to collect. You're supplied with limited ammo and are given only one chance to leave the mansion alive. So if you perish, you have to start all over. Now whether you leave with all of the 100 charms hidden throughout the mansion is up to you. You can easily leave the mansion with only a fraction of the charms in tow and still be rewarded for your efforts, such as unlimited ammo for certain weapons. Leech Hunter will change things up by randomly placing weapons in different rooms to keep you on your toes. I have an absolute blast playing this mode. And typical of Capcom, you have the option to change into several different costumes, with Rebecca naturally given a tight, skimpy leather getup, fit for the club, or possibly other extracurricular activities. You also unlock Wesker mode. This is where you can replay the game replacing Billy with Resident Evil's most notorious villain. Wesker has a dash that he can use, which I didn't find myself using too often, seeing as the majority of the game is confined to tight spots, but he also has a charge attack that can decapitate nearby enemies once unleashed. The problem with this attack is that you cannot move whatsoever while charging and leaves you susceptible to attacks. Either way, it's a lot of fun. For being a longtime Resident Evil fan, it is surprising that I had never played this one before, but I'm kind of glad that I hadn't. The game is pretty much what I had expected, and I wasn't disappointed at all. While I don't feel it's as good as the original remake, it's not far from it, and like all other Resident Evil games, it's playing through it again with unlimited ammo, and a knowledge of hidden items and knowing how to solve the game's many puzzles, which makes this game completely addicting for me. The partner-driven machine that Zero operates definitely gives it a different feel from the original remake, even though it was still somewhat familiar from having experienced Resident Evils 4 through 6. There's a ton of reasons that I'm such a huge fan of this series. Forget for a moment that Resident Evil is littered with dark and spooky environments and saturated with the most vile of monsters. Resident Evil also employs some of my all-time favorite protagonists, most notably of the female kind. From Jill Valentine to Shiva Alomar to Rebecca Chambers, the female protagonists are all in their own way total badasses not to be fucked with.
I am woman, hear me roar, in numbers too big to ignore, and I know too much to go back and pretend.
In a world where the majority of video game protagonists are male, the Resident Evil series puts a bullet through misogynistic bullshit and proves that even females can pull their weight when it comes to eradicating monsters and saving the world. If you're a Resident Evil fan, you have to check this one out. If you've never played a Resident Evil game, this wouldn't be a bad place to start, as the story leads right into the start of the first edition. Available for download on the PlayStation 3 and 4, along with the Xbox 360 and Xbox One for $20, I highly recommend this game. There's also a physical copy for both the PS4 and Xbox One titled Resident Evil Origins Collection, which also includes the HD remastered remake of the original. If you haven't played either, this is the one I recommend to purchase. While certain aspects of these games may seem a bit dated by today's standards, they are still fantastic adventures that should never be missed by Resident Evil diehards.
Alright, so there you have it, Resident Evil 0. So I'm still working on getting that Platinum Trophy. I'm actually going through Wesker mode again right now. I have the Unlimited Magnum, so that's a lot of fun. So I got a bunch of trophies that I still need to get. I'm at like 50%, but I'm well on my way there. So I'd like to say thanks a lot for watching this review. Have you played Resident Evil 0? Which version have you played and did you like it? What'd you think of it? Or what about the HD remake? What do you think of that game? Go ahead, let me know in the comments below. And if you like the video, go ahead, click the like button. And if you want to see other videos that I have, other stuff that I'm up to, go ahead and click on subscribe. Till next time, catch you guys later.